Luck plays a role in everything if you're willing to go there. So for example, I was born in the USSR, and communist Russia from 1917 till 1991 basically did not let people leave the country. A lot of people don't know this, but communist USSR was a jail. Unlike Iran, more like North Korea, you were not allowed to leave the country. And so I was born in 1975. In 1971 or two, there was a political event that happened where some Russians tried to hijack a plane and go to Sweden to escape the country. It became a brouhaha internationally, and Russia tweaked its rules and allowed people who were Jewish to go to Israel. And that's how they kind of like calmed the geopolitical storm. I am Jewish. I was born in 1975, and in 1978 we won a lotto that a couple 100,000 people won, and was able to leave the Soviet Union, and I grew up in America as an entrepreneur. I would argue that my entire life is luck in that scenario, because otherwise I would have, had I not been Jewish or had that situation not happened, I would have probably come to America maybe when the Berlin Wall fell in 1991, and I would be a totally different human being. So that is luck. Me working hard, staying curious, staying up late at night and not playing video games, but reading the internet, finding out about social media, flying to London to go to Future of Web Apps to learn, going to South by Southwest to Texas to learn, putting myself in a position to meet the companies that I personally thought were good, Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr, putting in the hours, providing value to those people so that I became a friend, not just somebody who was hanging around, thinking, working, trying. Feels less luck. But when people use luck or talk about timing and things of that nature, of course, I could have been born in the 20s. My parents could have never met, and I've never been a human being. Everybody is lucky and nobody is lucky. It just depends on deciding what you want to say and do. But as far as like the strategy, I feel incredibly comfortable in saying, saving my money in my 20s and then deciding to spend all of it in a 1-year period on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr, based on, at that point, 10 years of very hard work, diligence, of saving and not wasting my money and looking for the opportunity to strike, doesn't feel as oriented towards luck as it does towards being thoughtful with the gifts I was given, which could be luck, and this is the point of it all. The most difficult lesson was when me and my dad started to have friction in my late 20s, early 30s. From 22 to 29, I didn't even question why my dad wasn't paying me much, even though I blew up his business. I didn't question why my dad wasn't interested in giving me some equity, even though I blew up his business. And just for everybody who's listening who doesn't know anything about my story, my dad had a business doing 3.8 million in revenue, and in a 7-year window, I took it to 60 million. And I changed the course of my father's financial life and my mother's financial life, yet I was never getting paid $100,000 a year and owned nothing. And I was the operator. And so when I kind of got to like an age where I felt like I was growing up and thinking about like, maybe I should buy a house or an apartment. Maybe, you know, because I was blindly like, I'm gonna help my parents. So when I started asking questions, the answers were not of the kind that I was hoping for.
How did you take that? Is it, I mean, when it's
I took it very poorly. It was very difficult. You know, you sit there and you're like, the reason I was willing to do what I did was because my father built the base. But I was sitting there and said, I've been bleeding 7 days a week the last 8 years. The math is the math. Like, this is how much it did before I took over. Look what's happened. Everything's different. Everyone's life is better. My brother's life is better. My sister's life is better. My parents' life is better. My life is fine, but like, I'm definitely not getting my fair shake. I assumed the conversation was gonna be really easy. Aren't I the 50-50 partner at least? I'm more than 20x the company. And the answers were no. The answers were, you'll get it when I die. I'm like, well, you've got good genes and you're only 22 years older than me. I'm not sure I want to inherit this business when I'm 70. And it was a challenge. Now, I was empathetic, which helps. I could understand where my father was coming from. He was in immigrant land, not in startup land, not in America land. He was old country. He was like, it's the family business, and when the dad dies, the son takes over the daughter. And so I understood, but it was very, very challenging. Not to mention that he was in charge of building the new store. He was the general contractor of this new store, which was 2 years behind and 5 times over budget. So on top of everything else, I'm frustrated with him because I don't think he's delivering the promise that I'm delivering. And that's putting a lot of pressure on me. When you're going over budget that much and you're trying to pay for shit, you're scared. So it was a very trying time that I don't talk about often, and I'm only doing this because I feel like you put in so many hours that I feel compelled. Plus, I don't do it because I don't want to paint the wrong picture. My dad's the best. It was just what it was. And so those were long nights. That was the first time. And what I learned from it was what I preach, which is fuck money. Business doesn't mean shit. Your family, life, happiness, and I am proud to say I was the bigger man, that I feel like I had plenty of opportunities to turn it into a much more contentious, negative situation. And instead what I did was I built infrastructure around myself, made myself capable of moving on at some point without detrimenting the business. My father also would tell you, if he was on, he'd be like, cool, that's Gary's problem. Let me tell you what my problem was. I came to America and had nothing. I built this business. Yes, my son came and crushed it. But yes, I was maybe winning financially more than he was, but I had lost my identity. I went from being Sasha, the man at Shoppers Discount Liquors and Wine Library, to the people I've been doing business with for 20 years, wouldn't even return my call because everyone knew Gary was running shit and Gary was the guy. My dad's only 22 years older than me. So when I'm the man at 24, and I was, my dad was 46. To remind everybody listening, I'm 46 right now. So my 46-year-old father, who's an alpha, who's prideful as they come, is now walking around, and he would always use this Russian term, and it would translate to a senator with an empty briefcase. And what that meant in Russia talk was, in that briefcase was cash to get shit done. He was a senator. Yeah, he owns it, but he has an empty briefcase and nobody's fucking talking to him. And it killed him inside. So luckily for us, which is why I can talk about it openly, there was a moment there where I think he wanted to be the man again, and I needed to build something for myself. My brother was 11 years younger, coming out of school, and 2009 just kind of really worked out. And at 34 years old, I started VaynerMedia with no money. We started the company in Buddy Media's conference room, which I'm sure you know because you've listened to a lot of interviews. And I'm very proud of what we've built from zero and scratch with no cash. The reason you see that is that when I stay in the arena of business, there is something pretty crazy. I am a little scared. Thank God Kobe Bryant and some of the, I don't want to bring up Jordan and Tom Brady because I hate them so much as Jets and Knicks fans, but thank God there's some of these athletes out there that I can look at and be like, that. Like when I tell you, for anybody who loves Kobe Bryant, I think there's a pretty good understanding, including a documentary I saw this week that talked about when he was, it was actually a book I read, which is rare for me, but I read a book about the 90 Knicks, the 90s era New York Knicks, and there's a little piece they talk about Kobe coming in working out, and they talked about him being 17, 18 and feeling like he was 48 with no doubt. And that's who I've been as an entrepreneur, no question. To answer your question directly, I have many parts of my life where I have doubt. I had a lot of doubt as like a teenager and in my 20s around like asking girls out. My confidence level in like girlfriend, boyfriend, like school stuff wasn't at the same level as business. This one's a wild one. I have incredible fear of reading out loud because I'm terrible at reading. Literally at the Passover table, reading passages frightens me amongst my family, but I can go give an improv keynote to 7 billion people on earth right now if there was a stage for the entire world. Literally if tomorrow they're like, there's this new stage and it's simulcast to every person on earth and you can submit for slots and you get to give a 15-minute keynote to the world. I would literally submit for a keynote immediately. If I had to do it right now, Harry, if you were like, actually, Gary, I'm a genie from the future and I can do that if I snap my fingers, you will have to be on stage right now, and every person on earth is listening to you talk, I would do it right now. Yet, reading a children's book to you and Andrew right now in my office would scare me. So I have insecurities, I'm a human being, but I have none when it comes to being an entrepreneur, and I'm not kidding. Like, I'm not kidding. I'm really not scared.
Has that ever got you in trouble? It's got me in trouble when I've not.
It hasn't gotten me in trouble because my lack of fear is also balanced with extraordinary levels of empathy and compassion to the other parties involved in my behaviors.
You know,
right? The reason I was such a class clown and disruptor in class, but adored by my teachers, was I knew how to walk the fine line of not disrespecting them while still doing my shenanigans.